Alright guys, girls and everyone in between, you're watching Social Tedia, and this is my Who review of the Battle of Ranskoor of Kolos. So the plot of the Battle of Ranskoor of Kolos is the Doctor finds some distress calls on the planet. She goes to the surface to discover that Paltraki, the leader of a rescue ship, much like the Doctor, has been on the planet so long he's lost his memory. They find that he has recovered an article from the creature that is destroying all these ships. The return of Simshar from the woman who fell to Earth. So as a bartering tool, the Doctor takes this object back to Simshar in the hope of recovering the crews that Simshar has stolen from the various ships that tried to save the planet from his reign. While there, the Doctor discovers the plan of Simshar is a revenge mission against all the different planets which the inhabitants of had beaten him in the past. He's using a species of Ranskoor of Kolos called the Orcs, people that are able to control matter with their minds, in order to create a godlike status for himself. The Doctor now has to not only save herself, Paltraki's crew, but also several planets that Simshar has taken against. With a finale, you need a tonal change. You need something that you wouldn't get in a normal episode. You don't want to change it entirely from being a Doctor Who episode or from belonging in the series, but you want something that is taking it up a notch for an ending. And what this does is it changes the rules, it changes the social dynamic. You've got the companions falling out with each other, but you also have the rules changing from previous episodes. In episodes such as Rosa, such as the Witchfinders, the Doctor has been very strong on what you can and can't do, particularly in the Ghost Monument, a big point about guns. And then in this finale, she breaks her own rules and decides that this time she's coming in armed.
Oh, you stopped me trying to shoot a sniper once before.
You and you! I have to lay down the rules if someone's new. Also, don't cut that back to me.
And what I like about that is, it's the no-hold-barred, all bets are off tone of this finale. It both raises the stakes in terms of the threat that the previous rules are out of the window because we're in special circumstances, but it also raises it as an episode that this is the point where things are starting to break down, both in terms of a social level and also in terms of the details built up over the series no longer matter because this is a special case. And that's really elevated it as a finale in my view. And that includes both in terms of the plot and in terms of the character development that we see each of the characters go through, specifically with Graham. What grips me in this plot, particularly as a finale, is that I think that plots need to be character driven. They need to be small, intimate plots. Things such as Parting of the Ways, Last of the Time Lords, Journey's End, even Hellbent to an extent, they all have to have that grip of the character's plot over a universe-destroying plot. Things such as The Big Bang or The Wedding River Song, as good as they are, I don't think they reach the quite same level of status in terms of being exciting and gripping as a character-driven plot. Particularly with the main companion in their first series, it's usually them taking the lead and then showing off what they learnt at the end. And this is no exception in terms of Graham's character. With Ryan having a separate plot of his dyspraxia, and Yaz having her 3-series arc, this is Graham's moment to develop. And with this being a finale, this takes the form of the breakdown of the relationships, something that would be quite repetitive and mundane in a Hollywood movie, but in Doctor Who it feels fresh and different.
I won't let you do that.
You ain't gonna have a say in it.
Particularly for Graham as a character. We've had the arc all the way through Series 11, of Graham being the one who is measured, the one who is trying to tell Yaz and Ryan what they should and shouldn't be doing. And this is the first time where he breaks down because the one thing that could possibly break him has happened. He has found the killer of Grace. And all bets are off now. And I think that's really interesting to see the fan break down, particularly in terms of Ryan and Graham. The characters where Ryan has always been the one who's particularly unreasonable in terms of grace, in terms of needing some moral help from Graham at sometimes. And now it's completely 180-degree switch. It is Graham who needs to be assured by Ryan what the right thing is to do. And even involves them arguing and having some sharp words between the two of them.
Oh yeah, why do you care all of a sudden? According to you, I was never good enough for your nan anyway.
I said that a long time ago, Grandad.
Yeah, and I've been waiting too long for that at all.
And this for me is what really makes the finale. And the thing that I think is really clever with this dilemma is that it actually makes a lot of sense. The idea that Sim Shah is this mass murderer and Graham wants to stop him once and for all, it is an intriguing concept, and you can see why Graham would go for that.
Don't wreck what we've got because you're still angry.
I am not look, we did not get rid of that thing properly, right?
It's playing off previous storylines, such as The Town Called Mercy, where the 11th Doctor says that...
But they keep coming back, don't you see? Every time I negotiate, I try to understand. Well, not today, no. Today, I honour the victims first. His, the Masters, the Daleks, all the people who died because of my mercy.
And you can see the logic that Graham's working on here. And I think it's really good to see how Ryan might have gone with that at the beginning of the series, and he's gone a full 180 in his opinion. Because to see these two arguing amongst each other is both really distressing and really enjoyable, but also it works so well that both sides of the argument function really well as thought processes. And that adds a lot of stakes to the story, because you could actually see Graham potentially being right. And also that conflict that if he does what potentially could be considered right in his view, he could actually get thrown out the TARDIS by the Doctor.
If you kill him, I can't have you travel with me. That's if you even live.
I understand.
No, you don't.
This fun, family-friendly gang, this fam, could collapse. But there is a reasoning behind it that you could actually almost agree with, and that adds to the tension so much. What's great about this as well is the structure of the companions, because we know all the way through Series 11, this is the first time for a while, at least since the classics, perhaps you could argue with Series 1 or Series 5, but this is the first time we've had so many characters on screen at once. And so there needs to be some division, there needs to be a way to keep the plot going without it going stale and give the characters something to do, and it's drawn out quite early at the beginning of the plot that it's going to be...
That's where I want you both to head. See what you can find. Graham, Ryan, you've got life signal markers on your devices. What about you? Where are you heading? I'm going to find our friend.
And I think that works really well because it gives us a variety of different plot points to work on, and it gives us a variety of different moods as well. You've got the slight comedy mixed with threat of Sim Shah.
Tim Shaw. How long's it been?
3,407 years.
I bet the 7 really dragged.
You got the argument between Graham and Ryan with some serious tension and some serious nail-biting moments where they have coarse words between each other.
You want to get to him? Fernand, hold that.
Do I really? Why don't you just concentrate on what we're supposed to be doing?
And then you have this slight comedy exposition part with Yaz and Paltraki. It keeps the episode fresh and varied, which I think is very important. What I think works really well in this plot is the way that it balances numerous things. Because Christian Miller stated a few times that he wants to have every level in every plot. He wants it to be classical Doctor Who, but also something brand new. He wants it to be laugh out loud funny, but also terrifying and also meaningful. And he wants every level to be hit in as many places as it can be. And I think this works really well in this finale, particularly having Sim Shah come back. It adds the stakes to the characters and adds the stakes to the plot. But also, it adds that familiarity, that freshness, that comedy, so that you can balance the two out. You've got the end of the world stakes, potentially end of several world stakes, but you've also got the light-hearted moments. And also, what I think works really well here is the breaking down of the plot, we're learning about the orcs slowly through the episode. We're learning about Simshar's plan slowly through the episode, through these neural balances that are slowly bringing back the memories that Paltraki has. It means that we don't get the plot straight away. It gives us an excuse to learn what's happening slowly and organically through the plot, so that as it gets to the high stakes moment at the end, we're finally learning what the stakes actually are. So as the stakes build, our knowledge builds at the same time, and it gives us a really organic feel to the finale. And I think it works really cleverly as an episode, but also just structurally, it's really well created, I feel. The thing that is the hook of this episode, from beginning to end, is Simshar. When I first watched The Woman Who Fell to Earth, I was so gripped by this character, somebody who might be a typical robot, something like a RoboCop character. But the comedy, mixed with the terror, mixed with the brilliant performance, worked so well for me that I was begging all the way through Series 11 for his return, and it happened in the finale. Where some people might have rolled their eyes and not been that gripped by the character, this to me was the perfect ending. You had to have him come back in the finale. And I love the way that he's played as a comedy character. He's the one who's in control, and the Doctor is having that banter back and forth, trying to regain control from him. Particularly the references to The Woman Who Fell to Earth.
You're on a hunt.
Well done. Your tiny mind must be burning with such effort.
Did you just say I had a small mind? Tell me what this is.
Can't your puny mind understand?
I think it's a wonderful pairing, and it is an episode of pairings in many ways, but also I like the way that he's able to hold the attention and hold the terror while not being able to move. This whole life support idea is great because it means that the episode has a reason to stay static and just have banter between the two of them without it becoming monotonous and make you wonder why nothing's happening. It's a great device that Simshar holds all the cards and yet is doing almost nothing, and the Doctor is trying to run around the planet trying to hold everything together. And it builds on both of their characteristics, Simshar being the sassy one who is able to control a room, whereas the Doctor's energetic personality, where she cannot stand still, is used to the max here. Along with the return of Simshar, we also see a new alien race called the Orcs. This alien race is able to create matter out of nothing, and even able to create the entire Simshar shine just by willing it into existence. And what's clever about these species is the way they're placed in the episode. They're sort of mythical beings. There's only two of them in the universe.
The Orcs? As in, the duo species? Only ever two of you. Lifespan of millennia. Only found on 3 planets from the whole universe. I've never met an Orcs. Congratulations, it must be so cool.
Their religion is about walking and discovering stuff about the universe and about praising their god. Because there's only two of them, it both gives them a mythological status, but also explains why we haven't met them before. But also, it brings in different tones and different meanings. I found the dynamic between the two of them very interesting, how the young man isn't particularly religious, and the older woman is.
Delph, this is our home. We must stay here.
No. We need to understand what's out there.
And you get the tension between the two of them, of her blind faith towards her religion, which doesn't really make sense because it's being taken over by an evil megalomaniac, and the younger character who is able to see the flaws in the system and is raising his voice and saying this isn't right. And I find it's a very modern political statement, both about religion and extremism, and about hijacking people's beliefs, but also about the difference between willingness to accept change between age differences.
Our faith is all we have.
It's wrong. Please. This cannot be right.
And I think they're both an intriguing character to watch and an intriguing character as a concept, but also it adds a great level of character and a great level of meaning to the story, in that it's not just a battle between characters, between good and evil, but there's also a meaningful message behind them. To say that Simshar is the lead, and they could easily have been chucked to the side like something like the Cybermen in Closing Time, They are equal standing, and I think they add a lot to the plot in terms of interest, and just as a concept, it just adds another layer to the finale to raise it up another notch. Series 11 on the whole was mostly separate from the previous 10 series. Chris Chibnall made a point that he was going to do a 3-series arc, and the first part of that would be to introduce new viewers to the show, and part of that was to not alienate them by having old characters returning. And so, largely, despite a few areas of dialogue where old fans could grab onto things,
Tell me about Stormcage.
it was mostly a completely fresh slate. But the Battle of Ranskoor of Kolos brings this to a close as the finale by adding in references to the past to sort of say that chapter is closed and now we're going into almost series 12 by adding in the references that we can start to expect coming up. Things like Journey's End, things like Boomtown.
Will it work? No idea. But I once toured your planet halfway across the universe with this TARDIS and turned a Slitheen back into an egg.
But also, it shows us where the characters have been, which I really like. Because throughout Series 11, we've been getting these little hints.
Boom! Don't do that.
Little moments that don't really mean anything, but show how the audience has been picking up little bits of information that the characters can use to their advantage in the finale.
Take a comm dot. Mabley already has one. Stay off her channel while we work out what this is.
Every action has consequences.
These are yours, Doctor.
I didn't mean it like that. So annoying. I suppose I could loop this into the TARDIS's telepathic circuits.
This thing's telepathic too.
Don't call her a thing, Graham. Telepathic circuits. If it can work for your nanny's watch, it can work for that clever lad.
Almost like in Series 1, where the long game plays into Bad Wolf, where the Lazarus experiment plays into the Master's laser screwdriver. It's the same sort of idea. And I really love this because it really brings the series to a close, and it really puts the emphasis on the finale of this is all the things we've built, this is where we've come from, and this is where we get to use all those things to our advantage to show where we've arrived at.
We'll lash together every resource we've got, sort of like a supergroup. Best elements of everyone.
And that really both makes it gripping and really enjoyable as a fan to sort of feel that payoff from Chris Chibnall. But also, it adds an extra layer to the finale to fight one single enemy. Particularly the moment where the Ghost Monument returns and we get the repeat of the scene from episode 2.
What's that noise? Tim Shaw might have a shrine, but I've got a ghost monument.
Really was a wonderful bit of icing on the cake for me. Just before I get into my conclusion, I want to break down what it is that grips me so much in this episode. It's encapsulated in this moment here.
A bomb.
What happened to never do weapons?
It's flexible, Creed. Doors, locks, walls, buildings. Fair game. If it can be rebuilt, I'll allow it.
What you have here is a multi-layered moment, something that Chibnall aspires to create, something meaningful, something funny, something touching, as many different layers as possible at once, and these lines of dialogue encapsulate that for me perfectly. It works as a plot device to anchor up the tension and give the Doctor a reason to use bombs.
No, you stopped me trying to shoot the sniper bullets before.
You were new. I have to lay down the rules if someone's new.
It works as an explanation. It's not just out of the blue. Chibnall thoroughly explains why she's changing her style.
Doors, locks, walls, buildings. Fair game. If it can be rebuilt, I'll allow it.
So that there is a meaning behind what she's doing. But also it works as a reference to the Ghost Monument and a reference to the Doctor's morals entirely.
No, you stopped me trying to shoot the sniper bullets before.
It works as a reference to Stephen Moffat and his comical rule changes, constantly bringing up don't wander off and things like that. The Doctor lies, for example.
Also, don't cut that back to me.
And also it gives us an insight into the dynamic between the characters, how the Doctor has been pulling up Ryan all through the series, and now it's Ryan's turn to pull her up and enforce the rules on her, and shows the status between them as friends and as leaderships and as a fam in general. It's such a multi-layered scene, and this sort of thing is why I rank Series 11 and this finale so highly. It works on so many different levels, and all of them are contributing to the quality of the story. Something that I've touched on slightly in terms of Tim Shah is the repeat of the first episode. This plays almost as a sequel to episode 1. You could in fact watch it as a two-part story if you wanted to. And it's that end of term vibe of here is where we've come from and here is where we're going. And we get that in several places. Mostly through Jamie Childs, the returning director from The Woman Who Fell to Earth.
Jamie's a great choice to round off the series because he helped us find the look of the show by directing the first episode.
It was important to Chris Chibnall and the crew and the cast that we see Jamie Childs return behind the scenes in order to get both the similarities from episode 1 to episode 10, but also almost to show this is where we've gone and this is where we've been.
So to then go through this entire process and 9 months later, you know, end with him directing our final blocks has been great.
It's just good to kind of come back and collaborate and finish off with the guy that started.
Perfect. And similarly with Sagan Akiniola, you can hear in the music where we've been and where we're going.
Sniper bots! How did they get here? He's built an army of them! No!
The weapon is activated, Doctor. The Stenza held people in stasis as trophies, but that was never the goal.
Tim Shaw might have a shrine, but I've got a ghost monument.
All the moments from the series have been building up to this soundtrack, and it works visually, it works in terms of the comedy. These images are so beautiful to look at, the cinematography, the directing, the visual effects, the lighting, the colouring, it just all sings that this is 10 episodes in the making. And I think it really does both pay off as a finale, but just as an episode, to just sort of say a love letter to the fans of how much this finale means. And I, as a viewer, really felt that coming across on the screen. It felt like they're taking the series up a notch. If I may use a pun, turned it up to 11. So, my TD rating, I want to say that I love the Uks as a species. I think they're really well created, I think they're a great concept, well made. I love the return of Tim Shah. I think that the Graham versus the Doctor and the Graham versus Ryan story is really, really well put together. I think the sets and the directing and the cinematography look brilliant. I love the way that it references past episodes. I only have 2 issues with this story, which I will have to remove points for. The first one is that while I feel Chris Chibnall is a little pessimistic around this episode because he said that it was a first draft episode and it wasn't his finest work, I personally disagree. I think he wrote it really, really well. But the one issue that I have is with Tim Shah's plan to freeze worlds in these cubes. It feels like it's a bit tacked on. Tim Shah explains in the plot that putting people in cryosleep was never the goal. This was the final goal, but the fact that it's introduced in this episode puts it across as though it's a new idea that's been made up at the last minute, and I feel that's a little bit uneasy. And the second one is with the neural balances. I wouldn't mind so much as a little plot detail to show how Paltraki lost his memory, but the way that they're built up at the beginning of the episode and throughout the episode, that if these neural balances are removed, it will be devastating and will have huge consequences. We never really see those consequences in the scene where they're removed.
Do you mind if I get those back? A bit headachy now.
That's it. And I feel that really destroys the stakes a little bit. I feel like if you could have had 5 or 10 minutes where we actually see the consequences, that could really have improved that. So my final TD rating is going to be 95 out of 100. If you liked this video, drop me a like. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments. If you want to see more, subscribe, and follow me on my social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you want any more video suggestions, or you want any sort of chat, contact me on my email address. Hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll see you next time.